How are you? I'm so glad we're doing this. We have not actually met, so this is nice, a nice virtual meeting.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, how are you?
Hi, how are you? So I'm Lauren from RDU on Stage, and I am here with Crash Greg. I'm just going to confirm that we are actually live on Facebook. Hopefully everything's cooperating today. We are. Okay, we're good. um, I didn't realize this, but the Triangle Downtowner, which you started, is the oldest monthly publication in downtown Raleigh or in downtown, the Triangle.
Well, in the Triangle. So we started in 2005 as myself and my brother and Sig Hutchinson.
Mhm.
My brother and actually all of us, me and both my brothers, have started for whatever reason we like journalism. So my brother that I founded it with, he passed away a few years ago in a motorcycle wreck, but
Oh.
he founded probably at least 6 or 7 different, small publications. Actually did a Raleigh magazine a number of years ago, and I wish he had trademarked the name. But he did a bunch in several in Greensboro. He helped my brother found Triangle Tech Journal, which was the precursor to the Internet Summit. It kind of morphed into that slowly, and that was around even before the downtown. That was probably 2000, 99, 2000, something like that, when they started that. And so we've all had our fingers somehow in publishing. I'm not sure how. My background originally at NC State was engineering and business, and ended up finishing in business. And my brother was business management. My other brother actually went to law school and graduated and decided he liked journalism better. But, we like being part of the community and telling the stories of all the positive things going on, the arts, charities, local business, people, food and dining, breweries, food trucks, anything that's interesting and kind of tells the tale of the background and kind of the bones of where we live and why it's a great place to live and work and go out shopping and dining and everything else like that.
So in the time, I moved here in 2001, and I actually moved into Art Space. I had a studio at Art Space. I see you have Keith Marvel's painting behind you. I was catty corner from Keith and Anna's studio for several years. I shared a studio with Sharon Parker.
I have one of her works.
Yeah, she's amazing. I used to love to watch her work. It was very meditative, and she's an amazing artist. They're all amazing artists at Art Space. But I'm wondering, I mean, just since I've moved here, downtown has changed and evolved so much. So what are the biggest changes you've seen to downtown?
Well, when I moved here, it was 1983, so it's changed a lot since then. It was funny. There were not a lot of places to go out. There were not a lot of dining options. There were a few, but it's funny because then everybody knew everybody in and around downtown because there were only a few places to go. You'd alternate where you'd go. You'd start in one place. Maybe it was the Old Bar, which was under Charlie Goodnight's, and you'd go to 2 or 3 other places and you'd end up back there a lot of times in the night. So everybody knew everybody. I mean, it was amazing how few people you didn't know. And, as it grew, more and more bars open up. I know Slim's downtown was one of the first ones back in the day when there was nothing downtown. And it's grown slowly. And it seems like up until recently, there was something new opening up. I mean, almost on a weekly basis, mostly, restaurants and bars because of the things that people go to most often. But, performing arts, I mean, the theater's been around. North Carolina Theater's been around for a long time. Carolina Ballet's been around for a long time. I've had season tickets to both since the first season when they first started. I knew Deanne Jones and Wally back in the day, and Ricky's been at Carolina Ballet for a long time, and so there's a lot more arts programs. There's always been big ones, and there's always been small ones. The small ones kind of ebb and flow and come and go, I think, and people maybe take a bigger job and go someplace else. But we've always had a really thriving art scene here in the Triangle, and unfortunately now there's not one. I mean, with visual arts, people can't go to galleries, and performing arts, people can't go to shows. And I'm not sure what's going to happen there. It's going to be, we're in a very strange and trying time. There's people that are angry that we're having to stay in. There are people that are happy that we're staying in, understanding that it's for their safety. But at the same time, there's a lot of business owners who are saying, if we continue to stay in, we're going to close. And I think, it'll probably go until the end of May. And I think we're probably going to lose 30 to 40% of our locally owned small businesses who don't have that much money saved up to keep going, paying rent and everything else you have to pay, in a downturn like this. I mean, I think it's going to be worse than the, or much worse with respect to businesses closing than the recession. People say it's not, but it is. I mean, we lost some businesses, but we're going to lose many more. I mean, from having back then to having a reduction of business to having almost all your business, if not all of it, gone. And if you think about bars and restaurants, the ripple effect. So you have bars and restaurants who are barely making ends meet by doing takeout. And some are just, like Ashley said, we're just not even going to risk it. It's not worth my time to do that. She has enough reserves that she could, pay rent, keep going. But there's really, to her, it wasn't worth risking her employees' health and her own health and whoever is working, for what little would come in for takeout. So they're closing completely. So you've got the people who do social media for those companies, people who do web hosting, people who do, graphic design, cleaning companies, and people like that. So it's going to keep rippling up in bigger and bigger companies, people who do hood cleaning and people who come in and do all these other things, who now no longer have those clients. And so clients that they have, whether it's bookkeepers or accountants or, repairmen or whatever, I think it's going to keep rippling up until it starts affecting larger businesses where, there's going to be very little money changing hands except for some of the higher level stuff. So it's an interesting time we're in. And I hate that the art industry is really impacted by this. I mean, if you look at North Carolina Theater, I mean, no shows. I mean, there's no income coming in. They're having to lay people off. And, I don't know when that's ever going to come back in the immediate future. I mean, it has to be to the point where, we've either got a vaccine or things have changed, or they use 25% of the tickets and have a person every other row and every fifth seat. I mean, it's going to be difficult, so I don't know, what's going to happen there.
And but we're talking about the businesses and how they interconnect and interweave with the arts.
That's right. So I was talking about, people like, Cafe Luna, and so what he was doing was, having people come and eat, and then he'd take them to the show and bring them back. So, the arts do bring a lot of people, into downtown who either normally don't come downtown or only come downtown for shows, whether it's the theater or the ballet or a different show or going to an art show, an art gallery. And so it is a big revenue generator and economic development generator to bring people down who wouldn't normally come here. So, and it's kind of give and take. So, and a lot of people who maybe who will come down to eat dinner. And so maybe now we have so many nice restaurants, they'll come down specifically for dinner or lunch, and maybe they'll pass by an art gallery or know there's an art gallery here. And so they'll check out the gallery. Maybe they'll see a flyer or something for a show. Say, hey, let's come back and watch the show. So it's a symbiotic relationship between the shops that are down here and the restaurants and places to see and do things. And, maybe it's somebody who wants to come down and bring the kids to the Science Museum, Science Center, and then, maybe another time they come down with their spouse and see a show. So there's a lot of things in and around downtown that I think help other businesses that are not related specifically, but are adjoining, so it's a good relationship. Of course, now it's a ghost town. I mean, generally we print 25,000 copies of the magazine. We put them out in and around downtown and North Raleigh. Now we have them in Cary, Apex, Durham, but most of the places that we deliver to are closed. And so it wouldn't do much good to take some issues by. So what we've done was we pivoted to, we called a lot of the restaurants that we delivered to and said, hey, you're doing takeout. If we bring you the magazines in a plastic sleeve, would you put some of those in your to-go packages? And everybody has said yes, and they're happy to help. So It's almost like getting free home delivery for people. So we still are printing the same amount and they're still getting delivered. It's just in a different method. So instead of people stopping to pick them up, they're going right to their home, in to-go box, to-go bag, which has helped a lot. So that's been a nice thing. And in this current issue, we know all our restaurant advertisers don't have money right now. So all the restaurant ads that we have in this issue are free. We didn't charge for those and just let them, we asked them, we changed the ad for them to reflect what they're doing now to show their, where to find their to-go menu and how people can order and that kind of thing. So they've appreciated that. And it's a tough go. I mean, going from, making the money they were making before to making 10%, or less, just to try to help stop the bleeding. But it's going to be difficult. We're going to lose a lot of, we've already lost some, but we're going to lose a lot of places and maybe some that have been around for a long time.
Sadly. And hopefully, hopefully this will end at some point, although it doesn't look like it's going to be anytime soon. I know there have been protesters downtown talking about reopening downtown. There was a lawsuit that Raleigh Rickshaw filed to open up the businesses downtown. What is your take on it? I mean, are there ways people can support our local businesses downtown now as we navigate this pandemic? I know you've been doing a lot of takeout and curbside. So what are some of your favorite go-to places? I think Edge of Urge is doing these surprise boxes, which are filled with lots of local goodies. Although it's a surprise, I think there's different price points for that. So how can people support our local businesses downtown right now?
Yeah, I think people are having to get creative. So a lot of people, I know the Rockford and Sullivan's and Ray's and Cary and definitely in Raleigh, but there's a lot of places like that who are having family meals where you can pick up a big meal package for a family of 4 and you pick your meat or your vegetables or your sides or whatever. And you don't have to cook. I think a lot of people can't cook, although they're trying now. Luckily, I enjoy cooking, and I like getting takeout too to support people. But I cook a lot, and it saves money, and I get to control it. Plus, it's a relaxing time for me. I'm off the computer. I'm not doing anything. I get to play around with some stuff in the kitchen, and sometimes it's good, sometimes not quite so good. But it's fun. But some people can't cook, and I've got friends that eat out or did eat out every single night. You look in the fridge, and there's nothing in it. I mean, they don't know how to cook, don't care to cook. And so they're still getting a lot of takeout, and they're the ones that are really helping out a lot because they get takeout every single night. And they'll pick up double, and then they've got something for lunch the next day. And so that's really the biggest thing. I know people are asking for donations and GoFundMe campaigns, and those are great if you can afford it and you have a good job and you're not spending money on going out. You're not spending money on, a night out on the town, and you have extra money, and people can put even $25 or more into, helping out one of the small places to make sure, especially if they're your favorite places, tip good when you pick up something, tip like you're tipping in the restaurant, because the people that are working there aren't making much, per hour. I know a lot of the restaurants now are paying their staff that are working just a regular rate, and then the tips are just on top of that, which is nice. There are some people that are trying to keep as many of their employees as they can, even paying out of their own pocket. And I know people like Mike Reed at Havana Deluxe, he's paying all his bartenders out of his own pocket what they would make with tips for as long as he can. I mean, so there's a lot of really good business owners who are doing all that they can to help keep their employees afloat. And with the payroll protection, which was a big fiasco mess with, some of the bigger people getting a bunch of money. And, I think that could have been handled a lot better, and it should have been given out in tiers with maybe 100 employees or less, 100 to 500, and then over 500 in each section getting a certain amount of money. And, there's no checks and balances. And then you hear about people who, and you don't know what's true and what's not true, but you hear about some of the people who are getting that money and still not keeping their employees. So they're just spending on, other stuff, and they're, planning on paying it back later. And, the hospitality workers are some of the hardest hit because that is their skill set, is, working in a restaurant, understanding food, being able to work with people and be friendly and talk to people. And so they don't have a lot of other skill sets. Some do, but a lot don't. And that's, the only thing they have. And so they can't go out and get a job in marketing or something else. And there's not a lot of jobs out there right now. So there's a lot of people out of work. And it's going to be difficult. And I don't know what's going to happen to a lot of these people that can't pay rent. The ones that can't pay food, the food banks are having a hard time, collecting food because nobody wants to go out, and some of the ones they're collecting food are closed because of the safety to their employees. So it's a tough time everybody's in.
Mm. It is for everyone. And I know another thing you're passionate about is you're a board member, or you're a board member still for the Women's Center of Lake County, right?
Yeah. So there's, a lot of the places are, it's hard for them because they're out and about. They're not doing social distancing because only certain places they can go. So, they're worried about each other. They're worried about, other people. The Women's Center is worried about employees. They still try to provide services, but it's tough if you're trying to do social distancing and you're work with people who are out and about a lot, who maybe don't have either the wherewithal or the understanding or the means to buy a mask or to not be too close to people. So it's hard. I know a lot of people it's funny. I was talking about somebody this morning. So when this first started happening on Netflix, like the top 5 movies were all Contagion pandemic based movies. Yeah. And now they're not even in the top anything. I think people are so sick of hearing about it. People are watching comedies and things to take their mind off of it. And people are getting, cabin fever. They're sitting at home and with the same people and not doing anything. There's no place to go and nothing to do. I mean, you can go outside and hike and bike and do things, but I think people miss the energy of other people, and I miss doing interviews with people. And it's still fun to do them like this, but, being face to face and talking to somebody is always better. But it's a different time. And people are a lot less worried about things they were worried about before. People are a lot more understanding of, I've seen professional TV shows who are doing this and the lighting is bad and the audio is bad and they got on pajamas and nobody cares. It's like, hey, as long as we're talking to somebody and it's just, it's informal, it's fun, you're in my living room, we're hanging out, people are a lot less concerned with, formality of stuff.
Technical
people are just happy, hey, I'm alive, I'm healthy, my family's got food. The things that are important are now more important than, what kind of shoes do I have on, and, people joking about doing Zoom videos with business and whatever, like I'm not even wearing pants. Nobody knows, people just being very informal and casual, which, I think that's a good thing. I think, the things that are important, family and friends and that kind of stuff, is becoming more important again, as opposed to a lot of the stuff that we placed importance on in the past.
I guess, talk to me a little bit about, because you live kind of around that Oakwood area. Is that where you're located?
Yeah, right. I'm over in historic Oakwood. I'm moving soon. Actually, I've been there for 8 years, and we're in the process of moving and packing now. So that's all I've been doing for the past 2 weeks. It's amazing how much you can accumulate. So I'm trying to purge a lot and downsize and get rid of some stuff. And I love Oakwood. It's a gorgeous neighborhood. I love old houses. And I love, actually a lot of weird stuff and, a little bit of everything. And I like being a mile from work. I'm here in my office now, this is the one uncluttered section. If you saw my desk, you can't see the top. It's all covered in papers. So this is the one area I keep cleaning up here. But I do enjoy living close to downtown. It's gotten expensive in the last few years, but it's nice being close to the office. I have a short commute, 1 mile. We've been looking at some other places and see what's out there, but it's grown a lot. It's changed a lot, and there's so many people want to move here, want to be here, want to have a business here. The price per square foot for commercial is bonkers. The price per square foot for residential real estate as well, which is one thing that's helped keeping the magazine open. We've lost about 90% of our advertising revenue due to the virus. So I'm trying to focus more on real estate and I'm actually donating for anybody that calls and sees this, 50% of any commissions to charity of their choice, and I can help, pick one, or they can pick one. They could pick the theater, or they could pick Women's Center. If they have a local nonprofit to try to help out. And it's business I wouldn't normally get, and I get to help the community. So, together, we can kind of help local businesses and organizations and charities that need some.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm wondering, I mean, with all your work with the Women's Center and being in close proximity to downtown as you are, how is this affecting our homeless population? I know so many services that are normally available to folks aren't. Services are being limited. And then there's a lot more people relying on services that are available because there's so much unemployment right now. So
Yeah,
what's happening with that?
Yeah, so some of the unofficial food pantries, have closed. Some of the now a lot of them are still open. A lot of the churches are trying to stay open, and some food pantries are trying to stay open. So a lot of the resources, like you said, that people have had who are homeless, or maybe they're kind of in and out of homeless. There's a lot of people that are not considered homeless, that are technically homeless, that live in hotels, some of the lower end hotels, or they couch surf, with other people, and they kind of move around, but technically, to me, they're homeless because they don't really have, a lot of them don't have a kitchen in these small places. Now, a lot of the older ones are efficiencies. They have a little microwave or something in there, and a lot of people bring in their own hot plate, which is dangerous. But, that is part of the homeless population, and they're having a tough time. I mean, people aren't donating because people are worried about money. So donations are going down. A lot of the places where, they had, they could go for counseling or for services, and there a lot of places are not taking donations because they're afraid for coming in might be infected. So it really has, and I think with a lot of people losing their jobs, I think the homeless population is going to go up. Now I think most people who are younger aren't going to go and live on the streets. I think they've got enough friends that can stay in somebody's house in the couch and whatnot. But I think there are some parts of the population where maybe there's some people who are older who, maybe worked as part of a cleaning crew or in the kitchen or someplace else, who don't have a lot of friends, who don't have a place to go. They don't have money coming in. Maybe they're in a smaller place where, if you're in a hotel, there's no rules on being evicted from a hotel. Whereas they have rules in place now for being evicted from, your business or your home or some place you're renting. But hotels are not covered from that. So if you don't pay, you're out, and where they don't have anywhere to go. So it's going to be, we're going to have a tough time. I know Mayor Baldwin is, and the city council really want to put some money into homelessness and building some more housing. And I think that's going to be even more needed than ever before. And it's going to be difficult in the next few years. I mean, they're talking about New York not having any major events or sporting events or performances for the rest of the whole year until next year. And they're talking about the economy may not even really start to rebound, significantly until 22. So this is going to be a long-term issue that we're going to have. And, unfortunately, most of the bigger places that are going to survive are going to be chains, with corporate support and corporate money. And, we're going to lose a lot of the flavor, that we have down here, and the originality that from these locally owned places. And I hate we're going to lose a lot of those, but there's, we can't, unfortunately, save everything. I mean, I wish we could, but it's going to be a different time. This time next year, downtown will be a different place. I mean, once things start to come back, there's going to be somebody with money that'll open something else, and things will replace things. But I think a lot of the old standing places that maybe, they've been here forever and they never made a lot, and they made enough to keep going. I think we're going to lose a lot of those. And I hate that.
Me too. What does, there are so many new restaurants downtown. I just ate at Poolside Pies not too long ago. I know they're not that old. Brewery Bhavna is, one of the best restaurants in the country at this point. And there's a few new restaurants, High Horse and Jolie, that just opened not that long ago, that are really making waves on the national restaurant scene. So, what restaurants, I guess, is there a listing anywhere of restaurants that are still open that are doing curbside and takeout? Is there kind of like a one-stop shop where people can go to find out if their favorite restaurants are open
Yeah,
for business?
there's actually a bunch. I started one on our, it's actually a Google Doc that anybody could put their information in, but um, I didn't really have the time to curate that. So I've kind of pushed off to other places. WRL is a great one. It's very, it's got a lot of people in it. Of course, they have a bigger staff a
Mhm.
lot of times, so they curate it. There's all kinds of information. I know Shop Local Raleigh had one, but the one on RAL is by far, I'd send people to that one's the biggest one. Downtown Raleigh Alliance has a really good one that's updated, I think once a week or so for all the places in and around downtown and all the districts. So they've got one for restaurants, one for shopping, and then one for other businesses doing services that are still allowed. So that's a great resource. But the WRAL one, I think, is by far the best one. And it's, I'm not sure if it's triangle wide. I know it's Wake County, and I hope it's triangle wide. So it's, because there's a lot of places in Durham that are still open as well. Durham's a little bit more strict on some of the rules, and I think they are getting ready to pass something for Durham County. If you go to the grocery store, you have to have a mask on. I know they were talking about that.
I think that
Um,
just passed like yesterday or something, yesterday
yeah,
at midnight or something.
it's not a bad idea. I mean, really, that's the one place left where people are in close proximity. Of course, wearing a mask, unless you have an N95 mask, does not protect you, but it protects everybody else. If you happen to be an asymptomatic carrier and it keeps you from coughing or breathing heavy, and of course now they're saying it's slightly aerosol, so it may stay in the air for an hour or two if you cough or sneeze or even breathe heavy. So let's say you went somewhere in the elevator and you sneezed or coughed, or you'd been jogging and you're in your condo, your apartment, and you get in the elevator and you get up and leave, and then somebody else gets in it right after you and they breathe the air, then they could get it, So, and the other thing I think a lot of people don't think about is they think about the mucous membranes, the nose and the mouth, but I think people forget about the eyes. So that's why you see a lot of the people in the healthcare industry wearing the big face shields. So now they're saying that, start wearing sunglasses, or, I mean, it's obviously going to go around your regular glasses. But, if you are out and about where people are doing some stuff, if you're jogging, don't jog right behind somebody. Give as much distance as you can. So I think there's a lot of ways that it's spreading. I think this is one of the most spreadable pathogens that we've had in, ever. So it's pretty scary out there. I mean, I know that the death percentage is fairly low, and the amount of people that show deep symptoms is low, but still nobody wants to get it. They say now they're estimating that probably half the population will end up getting it at some point. First they said 100%, and now it's down to half, which is good. That shows that the stay-at-home order is helping for the places that have it, and the places that don't, their numbers are jumping up. I mean, I know people are clamoring and protesting to open it back up. If everybody was responsible, I could see that being okay. So let's open up, and maybe restaurants can do 25% of their capacity, spread everybody out. If you got outdoor seating, spread that out. But the problem is people aren't responsible. I mean, they just aren't. I mean, if you open everything up now, the bars would be packed with people 6 inches from each other, and they're just not responsible. I mean, I understand it's frustrating, if they open it back up and would allow a little bit of the people coming in, but how do you police all that? And people aren't self-policing, because some people just don't. I've had 2 people in the last 3 days, when I said hello, try to shake my hand, and I'm a handshaker, and my initial response was to stick my hand out and like, hey, let's do the elbow bump,
Yeah.
So it's a hard habit to break, especially for the older generation that are handshakers. You forget, and you've got to, and I know Fauci was talking about maybe we should never shake hands again. But hopefully after this pandemic is gone, people will go back to that. But for the foreseeable future, yeah, we shouldn't be shaking hands or hugging, and, just say half from a distance, and, maybe do a salute or something. But it's different times, and I know your goes mainly center around the arts and performing arts, and they're I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we may lose some of these places that now, if they don't have any big expenses, like for the ones that don't have, big offices and big places like that, they're not going to be as hard hit. They just won't have any revenue, but they'll have to go out and do something else because now their revenue is gone for the people that are running it. But for the bigger ones who do have big spaces they're paying rent on and staff, they're having to let people go. And it's going to be, how do we, I was actually brainstorming on that this morning, just trying to think about is, how can we help? How can we help raise money? I think interviews are a way of nothing else, just raising awareness and interviewing people. And I'm going to start doing some of that myself. And I know we talked about some joint collaboration. I want to start promoting your videos and putting some of your stuff in the downtown, because I am a big supporter of the arts and local nonprofits, which the arts are. And, I think whatever we can do to raise awareness for the people that are in that. But, those are all technically, employees, the people that work in the office, the people that perform, the dancers, the singers, the actors, that's their income. Now, some have other income, some don't. So, what are they going to do? I mean, so they're, out of work employees like everybody else, so, whatever we can do to help with awareness and to keep that in people's minds, even though they're worried about other things, I think it's good to keep that in the forefront. Like, hey, when it does come back, maybe it turns into ticketed virtual performances, where they're dancing, but then, how dangerous is that for them to all perform and dance together on the same stage? Can't really sing with a mask on.
No, no, and it's scary. So what is our downtown landscape, do you think, looks like post-pandemic? Because, you and I've talked about there's been such a boom over the last few years with new businesses, new life downtown Raleigh. So what do you think this looks like afterwards?
Well, it depends on how long that is. If it takes a year for things to go back to where they finally have a vaccine, I saw a friend of mine posted yesterday, I think on Facebook, if everything opened up May 1st, what would you do? And he had hundreds of replies, and probably 30% said, I think he asked, would you stay home, or go out like normal, or something in between? Mm-hmm. Probably 30 to 40% said I'd go out like normal. I mean, May 1st. They just, they're cabin fever. They don't care. They're younger, a lot of people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, just say, hey, I'm just going to go out. I don't care. I'm sick of being at home. And then about the same amount, 30, 40% said, I'm staying home. I'm still going to get takeout. I'm still going to go outside and do things. I'm still going to go to the greenways. Beaches open up. I'll go to the beach for the day, that kind of thing. And then the middle percent, 20 to 30%, about 20 to 30% said, does that add up? 40? Yeah. So said, hey, I'm going to go out a little bit. I might go to a restaurant if they have, spaced out seating occasionally, not as much as I did before, but, some just to be around some other people and to support, the local businesses. And I think that was the best answer is if it does open back up and they are practicing safe guidelines for that, I think I'd go out a little. And I think I'd go support and help. But I mean, if they open it up May 1st, I think some people are still afraid, but the floodgates are just people are going to trample everything and just go out everywhere. I think people are so sick of it, they don't care, unfortunately. So if it takes a long time, the longer it takes, the worse it's going to get for the local economy, the worse it's going to get when they do open it. I think they need to have a staged, slow opening of places to see and do. And you can't have mass people going to places and like going to the theater. How do you regulate that? Is it even worth their time? If you open up, do you have to have twice as many shows and dates to have the same number of people come through? Do you raise the ticket prices and say, hey, we're going to have to raise the ticket prices to make up for the lack of people in the seats? Yeah. How does that work? Do you get more corporate sponsors, which may be an option? Hey, we need more corporate sponsors to offset the lack of ticket sales. So that's a big percentage of what comes in for those people. And, you can't have 10,000 people in a theater anymore. I mean, it's just not it's not viable. It's not going to be allowed. So it's going to be different for a long time. I don't think we're going to be even remotely back to normal until probably early 2022. Once we've gone through a couple of cycles, maybe if the warmer summer slows this down, and of course the stay-at-home slows it down, and it peaks. It is already starting to slow down. The number of cases per day is slowing down. And you can see, like, if you look at the incremental growth, the amount of space between the dots on the number of cases is getting closer, which is good. But we don't want to go out and jump out too soon, because it's going to pick right back up again. So I think once when I guess they have a vaccine, is that going to take care of all the mutant strains? How long does that take? I know it's originally said 12 to 18 months. I know they've got it fast tracked, and I'm sure they're going to find something quicker than that. But it's going to be different for a long time. They said that social distancing is going to be the norm for at least the rest of the year. So it's going to be masks. They're going to say masks are going to be around for a while, and it's a different time. And it's funny now. There's fashion masks and everything. There's going to be a new normal. We're already in a new normal, and there's continue to be a new normal for a while.
And there are a lot of artisans, our local artists, who are switching and pivoting and making masks now. So if you need or looking for a fabric mask, because the medical ones are now being reserved for our healthcare workers, as they should be. There's a lot of local artists making them. I'll try to put some links to all of the places we've talked about and the resources when I publish this on the website. I don't want to get too political, but I think a lot of people are frustrated with how our federal government is handling this pandemic. There's a lot of confusing information and inconsistent information. But for me, I've been very impressed with how the governors and the local people are treating the pandemic and communicating with our citizens. And I have been impressed with how Governor Cooper is handling this. How do you, what's your finger on the pulse of how the mayor's handling this? I mean, this is an unprecedented time, so they're figuring it out as they go along, like the rest of us. But I've been pretty impressed with Governor.
Yeah, and he's had a lot of really hard choices. I mean, there are people that are very happy, and his approval numbers are higher, because of how he's handling it. So I think he's doing a good job. There's a lot of people that are angry that places are closed. They don't agree with things. There's people that would open everything back up tomorrow, and there's people that are protesting because they want things back open. And I mean, I understand their viewpoint. I mean, they're business owners, and their livelihoods are disappearing, and so they're angry. They're mad. They're not. I'm not saying they're not thinking of other people, because they're not worried about other people getting sick, bringing people out, but they're worried for their families. They're worried for what's going to happen to them and their kids. And I mean, I understand, but I think we all have to look at the bigger picture, which it's harder. I mean, it's a very unselfish thing to do, to look at the bigger picture and not worry about yourself, but look at, Raleigh and Wake County in North Carolina and the United States as a whole. I mean, this is a worldwide event. It's not something that's, local or even regional. It's or national. It's worldwide. So we need to look at what other places are doing that's working. I mean, the stay at home is something, unfortunately, we have to do until we break that curve and it starts to go down significantly. We can't, as soon as it starts, we can't let everything back open. So it's got to be, something where what that really does is, they said that the same number of people are probably going to get infected by the end. But what it does is it spreads all those out. So we're not overwhelmed in the hospitals and overwhelmed for the ventilators and overwhelmed like they are in New York. I mean, it's crazy up there. And if you ask them, hey, do you wish you'd started to stay at home a month ago? There's not many people in New York that would say no. They say, yes, I wish we'd started earlier. It might be, we might have reached the top sooner. So I think that, I think Cooper is doing a good job. I think Marianne's kind of, watching what he's doing. Wake County's watching what he's doing. And I think the governors know their state and their people better obviously, than federal government. So I think the governors need to have more control. I don't think we need any kind of federal mandates. I think the governors, at least where they're doing the right thing. Now, for the governors that are, in my opinion, being stupid, I think maybe maybe those particular states need some mandates and some help and some guidance, saying, okay, you need a stay-at-home order in your state, and we're going to tell you to do one. But I think Governor Cooper's doing a good job, and he's not taking this stuff lightly. He's talking to. I've got a friend of mine that had a phone call this week with him to talk about, hey, here's what I'm hearing on the streets. Here's some things that people are concerned about, and he's listening to a lot of people. I mean, it's got to be right now probably the most stressful time that he's ever going to have in his governorship.
Very overwhelming.
What he's having to go through, and all the conversations he's having with business people, other government officials, and just people that are reaching out, by email and phone calls, and taking everything into consideration, and then having to pair that with the safety of all his constituents in the whole state. So he's got to look at a lot of different factors, and I think he's done a good job so far, and I think he's done what's best for the people, the safety of the people. Now, is it what's best for the economy? It's not, but sometimes there's sacrifice, and it's tough. I mean, we have a really tough economy coming up, with things that are closed. But is letting the economy take back off? Is that worth people's lives? I mean, then you have to look at the bigger picture and say, no, I don't think it is. It's a tough choice.
So, I'm not a paid spokesperson. You're not a paid spokesperson. So I'll get that out right now. But, I'm going to ask you what's for dinner tonight, because my favorite place. So we have a local pizza. I'm in Cary. I know you mentioned Ray's. My favorite new local pizza place. It's hard to get good pizza in Cary, Crash. I don't know why. It shouldn't be, but it is. But we have a new restaurant, so I'm going to give them a plug because they are doing a really nice curbside business. They're doing a lot to keep their employees safe and to keep everybody employed, and they just opened. So I'm going to put a shout out for V Pizza, best prosciutto panini. It's a simple sandwich, but man, is it good. And they're making these incredible pizzas. So I'm feeling like that's what's going to have to be for dinner at my house. We're trying to support them once a week because it's just so good. So what's for dinner at your house?
Well, we take out the last few days. Like I said, I do cook a lot. Actually, I made the best pepper soup. We had some red and yellow peppers and a bunch of the big ones, and then some small ones, onions, and I put a lot of stuff in. I hate when I make a recipe that comes out really, really good, and I have no idea what all I put in it or how much of everything. And I know I had celery and onions and chicken stock and heavy whipping cream and a bunch of spices and some other stuff, and it came out really, really good. And I don't know, I couldn't make it again if I tried. And I do that sometimes. Of course, sometimes I do that, and it's a little iffy. This one came out really well. So I've got leftovers in the fridge, and of course yesterday was my son's birthday, so we went to Ray's, and he loves their Scottish salmon, so we got that and some other stuff, and I got the grouper, which is amazing. And then we recently had some food from the Rockford, which was really, really good. They just have new ownership and a new chef, and they've got a bunch. They've got like family style specials, and then they've got a la carte, restaurant. Entrees. We've eaten there a lot. Parkside, we probably get Parkside tomorrow. I think tonight's a leftover night. And then tomorrow night at Parkside, we had takeout from Whiskey Kitchen the other day. Bella Monica has got so many of the same dishes, and he's over on Edwards Mill. Really great food. We got lunch the other day at London Bridge. My son loves their chicken, and they've got some really great sandwiches and chicken wings. Actually, some of the chicken wings are really, really, really good. But there's so many good places around here to eat. Nofo, I want to get their shrimp and grits sometime soon. They've got really great shrimp and grits. And then there's a new little place that just opened up, sadly, a couple of months ago. Is Smokestacks Cafe over in Oakwood. It's a block from my house. It's a brother and sister team that are really. They both were out of the state for a while. They're back, and they went to New York, and have a smoker out back and just really, really good smoked meats. And they've got cheeses and charcuterie plate and a lot
Mhm.
of really, really good stuff. And it's cheap. They've got family style meals as well as individual menu items. And I hate that they just opened. So we're trying to help them out a lot, get some
I'm
people
putting
in
them
there.
on
And
my,
the neighborhood is very supportive.
I'm gonna have to, but my husband likes smoked anything, so I'm gonna have to put them on my list.
Oh, it's really, really, really good food.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. And, I always use the hashtag support local artists, support local theater. I'm just going to just say support local because we need to support our local folks right now, support our local businesses so they can get through this.